There could be a world of abundance for all, but instead it's going to be a world of unbelievable abundance for the few and nothing for the many, because your job can be taken by automation. Then it's going to be true of billions of people. Y'all are going to lose your jobs to the robots. UBI is a great idea, but you need to convince the government to do it. And there's lots of people that want to say no to that. But hey, we've got these brand new tools. What about cryptocurrency as universal basic income?
What's up, guys? This is a great conversation with Philip Silva. He started a couple of companies that aim to bring a global UBI to the world on the blockchain. I'd love to say I'm above asking you to hit that like button. I would love to say that. This is important stuff, and my audience, I know, is going to be super interested in what you have to say. They can see the humanity first in the background. And there's your other projects underneath that. And we're going to be talking about UBI and cryptocurrency and how those two worlds meet to make the world a better place in this new, knee of the curve that we're going into. And there's a lot going on in the news right now with cryptocurrency, and I want to get to all that, and because I'm sure you have a lot of opinions on what's going on. But let's get a little background on you.
Yeah, so I used to have a normal job. I worked in affordable housing, helped secure lots of debt to have people purchase large apartment buildings all over the country and rehab them and use them for affordable housing. And
you were doing home loans, or you were doing different types of?
I was involved in the financing of large scale apartment buildings. So, a normal deal was, a 100-unit apartment building somewhere, and they were borrowing $10 million to buy that. Yeah, bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. Clearly should have bought more, but hey, so I bought a Bitcoin for $112. That was clearly a good idea.
Great deal.
Watch from the sidelines as craziness happened. It was one of those things where I bought that Bitcoin, and then within 3 months it went to 1,000, and I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" And then I watched it crash down and down and down until $200, $250, and it's sort of somewhat still paid attention, but not as much. And the 2017 came, and the 2017 bull run came, and I started reading tons and learning, getting so excited about this new technology, these new forms of money, and I wouldn't shut up about it. And my wife, who doesn't care about technology or money, was like, "What good is this? How does this do good for the world? So what? Young white men get all the money instead of old white men. Stop. I don't want to hear it." So
she wasn't satisfied with the money. She wanted more from you than just providing. You're like, "Are you not entertained?"
Right. Look, it's gonna change everything. New financial systems, and she did. And for a long time, I think a lot about the same things that you do, like the coming automation, how that's gonna change the world, and maybe we don't need people doing the kind of jobs they do today in nearly the numbers that are doing them. What are we gonna do? The world we're going to a world where there could be a world of abundance for all, but instead it's going to be a world of unbelievable abundance for the few and nothing for the many, because your job can be taken by automation. Then it's going to be true of billions of people. Y'all are going to lose your jobs to the robots. So we need to figure out a solution.
Yeah, I keep telling people the best way to prepare for automation is invest in automation. Get some money from this thing. If you can't beat them, join.
So as a solution to that, I was like, all right, well, so UBI is a great idea, but you need to convince the government to do it, and there's lots of people that want to say no to that. But hey, we've got these brand new tools. What about cryptocurrency as universal basic income? And the initial idea was, hey, wow, we've learned how to create these new forms of money. Imagine how much cooler Bitcoin would be if 1 billion people had it instead of, hundreds of thousands of people at that point having it. Could you build a faucet to distribute it to everybody? And then sort of the next idea is, hey, or could you create a brand new cryptocurrency that at its genesis, all the creation of that money from the very first coin that gets created is distributed equitably to everybody. Could you build a cryptocurrency that as it comes into existence, everybody gets it? So massive network effects, because everybody wants this to be valued because everyone benefits if it is. It's what I do full time at this point is focus on crypto. Particularly, I'm involved in a whole lot of DAOs, and those both for-profit DAOs and non-profit DAOs, and a bunch of things in between. So
for the people that don't know what a DAO is, it's a distributed automated organization.
Decentralized autonomous organization.
It's close.
Yeah. So years ago there was the DAO, and it was this crazy idea years ago that was going to change everything on Ethereum, and unfortunately it blew up due to a smart contract bug. And then everyone was like, "Oh, that's a terrible idea." But then over time we realized that no, actually the structure of these DAOs where people and technology can come together to coordinate, make decisions, manage capital. This is a great idea, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of DAOs now, and there's more every day. They've got more and more value locked in them, more decisions that matter made by them. The DAOs are the future. These are not going away. They're going to be DAOs for everything in the future.
So you're running all these DAOs on the Ethereum network, and you're worried about automation, and your wife's in your ear. Do something good for the world, damn it. And so what are these? Tell me about these DAOs and these projects that you're working on.
Yeah. So let me pivot to how I try to do good. So it's like, hey, great. So we should have value that we distribute to all the people. Okay, in theory, that's pretty easy. In practice, it's really, really hard. And the first problem that sort of came up against that I didn't realize how hard it would be is if you want to give something of value to all the people, how do you define all the people? How could you have a fair mechanism and one that's sort of automated and like let the blockchain just do it, so it's not a bunch of administrative cost and nonsense? Let's bring it up. Let's say you wanted to give $1 to every single person you met. You just had like a fat stack of $10,000. You just wanted to walk around a city and give $1 to everybody. So you need to have some mechanism to know, have I given the person $1 yet or not? Anybody gets it. So like there's no limitation to why someone should get it or not. But there is a limitation, but you want the limit to be only one per person. So how would you do that? And if you think about it at that scale, then how would you do it at a macro scale of billions of people?
Right. You're trying to protect against fraud here. You don't want double dipping. You want to identify these people. You want to do it right. $1, one person, we can track it.
And it's like, so you could, like in the United States, like you could be like, all right, show me your license, and then take a copy of it and like record it in my database. Not something I want to be involved in. And also, there's all these different countries all over the world. Some of those governments would try to attack the system. Some of those, some like dictators, some would be like, oh yeah, here's a bunch of fake people that I'm going to make up. And another dictator's going to be like, oh yeah, this ethnic minority, and they don't exist. We're not going to help them.
Right. So, we both read the book Crisis 2038. You guys, if you haven't read Crisis 2038, it's a really cool breakdown of the pros and cons of UBI and how it might be a necessity in the digital age. And you just mentioned something that happened in the book where people have, armies of these bots. This happens now, but when we have AI, they can really interact with people in a more impactful way. So it could be a real danger having a bunch of fake identities, AIs are running around on the internet. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, you guys totally read that book. Fascinating. Written by a guy that sort of used to run production for Tesla. Unfortunately,
really?
Yeah. So he was like the VP of production. So he knew as much about automation, like factory automation, as anybody in the world. He was at the bleeding edge of, this is what we can make robots do, and this is what we're doing now to make them do 5 years from now. So, things that sound like science fiction to us today,
Or like
he was
already
working
happening.
on 2 years ago.
Yeah.
like in practice. So
Wow.
yeah, great book. So trying to solve this, how could you have this sort of decentralized identity system? And I tried and failed on a different project, and then met the founder of Bright ID. And Bright ID tried to solve this problem of digital uniqueness in the most minimal way possible. What's the smallest amount of information that you need? And Bright ID is trying to solve that. So you can prove you exist once without providing any other information.
Right. I guess that's the big thing about this too, because everybody is concerned about digital privacy.
So self-sovereign identity is a thing I think is going to be really important in the future. The way I describe that is it's like a digital locker where you can store all sorts of information, attestations, medical records that you have control over, and you can give any part of that and only the parts you want to any entity that needs that information. So you go up in the doctor's office, you want to give them all your medical records. You walk into a job interview and you want to be able to give them your transcript from college, and you'll be able to do that without giving any medical records to your job, and without giving any GPA information to your doctor, right? Getting only the information. An example I give also for that is going into a bar. So you go into a bar and you want to drink, and what they need to know is that you're over 21. The way you do it today is you hand over your license. They now have your name and your address and your hair color and your height. And it's funny, they now have your date of birth. All they needed to know was the binary answer, are you over 21? The license is an attestation from the DMV that you have that age. In a self-sovereign identity world, you'll be able to just like flash a credential that's a green check mark that just proves that, yep, the DMV, however they knew, says, yep, you're over 21. Binary answer without any other information leaked. And what Bright ID seeks to do is provide that binary answer of, have you, application, project, bar, whatever it is, seen this customer before? And it's a binary answer of yes or no, without any other information. They don't need to know your name. They only need to know, have you been here before? So the bar wants to give one free beer to everybody. The only thing they need to know is, have we given you a free beer or not yet?
So this system, Bright ID that you're developing, it doesn't grab all your information, or it sequesters information so only certain people get it?
Bright ID does not grab any of your information.
Okay.
The only thing it seeks to know is, are you a unique individual with one account?
Okay, so that's great. So they don't have any of my stuff, but they know I exist, and that's useful so that I could be counted on a vote, or get the free coffee from the coffee shop, or whatever thing that people want to count me once for.
Right. Or sign up for UBI.
Right.
And this is where it gets into non-governmental UBI, which I find really exciting. I wish governments of the world would implement UBI. I think that'd be brilliant for lots of reasons. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that, for whatever reason, don't think that's a good idea, don't want to do that. And they will loudly say no. And it would cost a massive amount of money. Now, I think you could recoup that and whatnot. I would argue for it on a policy standpoint. But there's a whole lot of people that want to say no. The great thing about a non-governmental UBI, powered by crypto, is you only need to get the people that want to say yes to be involved. And that's what we're doing with a nonprofit that I'm part of called Hedge for Humanity. So I'm on the board of Hedge for Humanity. And we're going to be running a number of sort of projects to see if we can create a framework for non-governmental UBI. The idea is, so the grand vision is called Humanity Fund. And the idea is that anybody can send in any sort of value. So that can be cryptocurrency, it can be cash, it can be stocks, it can be intellectual property, it could be mineral rights, like you name it. If you wanted to send in the value, great. The fund will hold the value, steward it for the benefit of everybody, and pay out dividends from that to anyone that wants it. So entirely opt in for both the funding of the pool and the distribution of who would like to get some of it.
So if everybody rushes in to get some of it, would that dilute it to the point where it's not meaningful?
Absolutely right. Yeah, if the number of people collecting is very big and the number of people putting in is very small, that's not going to be very compelling.
Because it's equitable. It's like it's even based. You don't have to like prove that you need it more than another person.
Yeah, my favorite version of these things is the super simple. Just do it fairly. 1,000 people sign up. You split it 1,000 ways.
Right. This is the argument that I had against Bernie Sanders' everybody gets a job thing. I'm like, oh my God, the bureaucracy involved in trying to figure out, create an entire government level temp agency where you like assess people's skills and like deal with like the HR department. Like, it's just like, what? No, the simplest, cheapest thing is just give people checks. Don't ask, what they spend it on or how bad they need it. You just, keep the government agency small. That's like the only way it's going to work. So, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I believe that if we can create a framework and prove it actually works, that we can administratively manage this thing, that there's a lot of people in that asset holding class that would like to put assets. If you could know that 100% of this money goes to everybody. Imagine if there were billions of people signed up for this. And it was just like, yep, anytime we put money in, everybody benefits. And there's no administrative nonsense. It's just the rules are simple. It's on the blockchain. You could track and see exactly how all this is working. I think that will be very compelling to the people that have the assets. And I think it'd be very compelling to the people that need the money to sign up to get their free money. I think free money is really going to sell.
Yeah, I agree. And so just recently I saw that ARK Invest, they created some merch and they're donating all the proceeds from their merch to charities that are in line with their brand and what they deem their corporate responsibility. So this would be one of those things that companies could sort of claim, hey, look, we're giving it back to you. And the idea that could become like cool and trendy would be huge for something like
100%.
this. Yeah.
Right. I used to imagine, I wrote up a thing about 1% for humanity, right? So, it's this campaign. You go out to a bunch of companies and you say, hey, you should donate, 1% of your profits or 1% of the equity in your company to this fund, and there'll be a cool logo and you can like put up on your website or put on the door of your business and be like, we donate 1% to humanity.
Right.
And
yeah.
So like when you shop here, you're helping everyone, including you, and that the customer base might be like, hey, we really like companies that share back to all of us. And it could become a thing where it's like, if you don't do that, it's like, what do you mean you don't share back?
Canceled.
Right?
Yeah. Let's put this cancel culture to good use, right? Let's incentivize these companies to do the right thing.
It's funny, there's sort of some demonization of the 1%, right? But if you actually took 1% of all the money,
yeah,
and you give it to everyone, the amount of inequality that you would fix just by that action is mind-bending. Like,
right.
There's no more dire poverty left in the world if you take 1% and redistribute it to everybody else equitably. Like, everyone in the world
just 1% would do that?
1%. There's so much money in the world. I'm not saying you can get all 1% into the pot to do it, but if you did, like, everyone gets to eat. Everyone gets to have basic medicine. Everybody, like, all the kids get to go to school.
Yeah. What I like about the global UBI thing too is, man, it just seems so much simpler than a zillion different governments doing it. I mean, it'd be great, like you said, for governments to do it. But I think if it did become a trend with governments, eventually, if everyone's doing it, probably eventually people would be like, man, we're all running these separate UBIs. Like, we might as well just combine it into one.
It's certainly possible. There's a great organization called World Basic Income that thinks about a lot of things that I do. They've spent a lot of time and energy thinking about, from a kind of like a UN sort of perspective, how you could get all the governments to play together to fund a giant pot of money to pay out like this.
It's called World what?
World Basic Income.
Okay.
And sort of they show, hey, like, here's what a carbon tax would look like, and I wish I could lay out, I read it a long time ago, but here's a bunch of different like pots of revenue that could be generated, and how much money they would raise if you did it on a global scale, and then you can give it out to everyone. And their goal is to give every adult, I think, $50 a month. It's kind of a nice number, and leads to the other effort that we're doing in Hedge for Humanity, which is going to launch pretty soon, called the Borderless Basic Income Project. And basically, we're going to experiment with paying out UBI in cryptocurrency to people that are verified by Bright ID as unique. So anyone can sign up for the raffle. If you win, you'll get paid $100 in crypto every month for a year. And we picked that number so that it is exciting for anyone, even if you're in a wealthy country. A beautiful payout if you're in a poor country, but also not so absurd that we're not trying to make anyone a king out of this, because I'd rather give it to more people,
right,
than to give one person lots.
And when is this launching?
By the summer.
Okay,
we're
soon.
Working through different bits of it, but it really is coming. We've already got enough funding committed for it that we can run a bunch of prizes. But we think that once we start doing this, that a lot of people would like to sign up for it because, yay, free money sells. And also, if we can prove to people with assets that we can actually pull this off, that it works, I think a lot of other people will put money into it.
And so you need, so Bright ID is going to have to be working for this to work, right? So that's up and running, and now people can actually are going to be actually able to go use Bright ID to sign up for this UBI pilot program, essentially. And then I guess you'll learn a lot and figure out where it goes from there.
Yeah, and so one of the things, as a daily crypto user, I understand how all the tools work. I can get money in and out. If I want to take crypto and turn it into dollars to buy groceries, like, I can do that. Doing that with someone in Ecuador or Nigeria or Pakistan, like, that's trickier. And one of the things that we're gonna learn about through this process is, okay, we found the winner. We know, all right, it's Mary in Zimbabwe. Okay, now we're actually going to work with Mary to figure out how Mary can turn this thing that we're going to send her, which is $100 worth of crypto, into money that she can buy her groceries with, because that's what she needs. And we're going to learn what works and what doesn't, and then we'll have more and more prizes and more people, such that eventually it can be automated, and we can just sort of direct people to, oh yeah, here's the best practice. This isn't hard. You do this on your phone, and boom, it works. That'll take some time. And we're not going to get it right at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. And so, but as it scales, this kind of leads me to this other question I wanted to ask you. As it scales, I mean, you already said the Ethereum blockchain was kind of expensive and not really built for this yet. And then also, I want to talk about the environmental impact, because one of the things that was sort of low key levied against Tesla and Elon Musk when they, bought their Bitcoin recently was like, how does this play into your brand and your corporate vision of not polluting? And so the blockchain doesn't get a ton of headlines about this, but it's true. It does get some that it's a carbon producer. I don't know how much Ethereum is polluting, and I don't know how these things are changing. Elon also is, trying to put money and whatnot into carbon capture. So like, how does something like, let's say, the Hedge for Humanity blows up and scales and we're paying a lot of people, like how do we stop negative environmental impact?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. So first off, I'll say, Ethereum has meaningful energy usage, but not nearly as much as Bitcoin because sort of the way that it works. But Ethereum is very quickly moving away from that. Bitcoin is proof of work, and you actually the intent is you burn energy to make the network run. Ethereum is also currently proof of work, but it is right now in the middle of a transition to proof of stake, which will not use much energy at all. It uses economic gains instead of energy to secure the network. Some people question whether that will work. I know a bunch of unbelievably smart people that are working on making sure that it does work.
It uses what instead of energy?
Financial gains. So basically, you stake assets, Ether, and say, I will run these transactions correctly. And you and thousands of other people are all sort of co-processing these transactions. And like when it's your turn, you get to go and you stake. And as long as you do it right and in consensus with everyone else.
So you're not competing. So there's not thousands of machines running at the same time doing the same work, right, competing. Yeah. and getting all that, using all that energy at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
I see.
18 months from now, Ethereum is going to be on proof of stake, and the energy consumption goes, from 100 down to 2. It's just not a problem at that point. Now, Bitcoin, on the other hand, Bitcoin's going to stay proof of work, and Bitcoin uses an unbelievable amount of energy. But actually, I think that in the long run, the energy use of Bitcoin will be really good for the world. I think that it is going to inspire the use of green energy to a degree that people struggle to wrap their brains around today. So it is already true that really dirty forms of energy don't get used for Bitcoin because they're too expensive. Like if you have to burn coal to get your energy, the cost of that energy is too expensive to use it to mine Bitcoin. The one place where that's not true is if the government is subsidizing the energy to the consumer.
Right.
But that's just like bad incentives. Someone is paying the cost, like the government. And if a lot of people are buying that subsidized energy, the government's going to wise up and be like, no, you can't have underpriced energy anymore. We're going to charge you the cost of it. Things like wind, hydro, flaring off like natural gas from pumps. There's all these new ways that people are figuring out how to get energy to do Bitcoin. And one of the great things about that also is that.
So you're saying that because it's so energy intensive, it makes it not cost effective to do it dirty, and so it's because it's so energy intensive, it's actually going to help with the shift. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it essentially.
Yeah. So that's part of the other thing is so like wind energy. Wind turbines, if you put them in really, really windy places, are amazing at producing energy. You put them up like in the Rocky Mountains, they spin really fast and make a ton of energy. But the problem is nobody's there that wants that energy. And when you run the power lines down to the city where it does want the energy, you lose tons of it along the way. Right? So, but now with Bitcoin, you can locate the miners, the Bitcoin mining machines, right next to the source of the energy, whether that's like a giant hydro dam or wind turbines or flaring off in the middle of fuel fields. So you can, and then you don't lose anything to transmission. So now more wind turbines get built because someone's like, oh, I'm going to build a wind turbine and like put the Bitcoin miners right under it. And as more wind turbines get built, we get better at building wind turbines and the price of them come down. So now someone else can build wind turbines cheaper and better than they would have been able to because it's like, great, now there's 10 times more wind turbines.
Not necessarily, putting money into Bitcoin is not necessarily hey, I'm doing good for the environment, but in the long run, if Bitcoin grows, the path of least resistance for it is going to be clean energy, which will be good for the world. Okay.
I'll say one more thing on it and then let it drop, and that's that. So Bitcoin has now, because you can mine Bitcoin, anyone that has a new good way of producing energy, and all the new good ways are they're going to be green, or greener than what we have now. Is if you can figure out a new way to build this like better mousetrap, there is a customer. Bitcoin will always buy energy, cheap energy, anywhere in the world, anytime, without limitation. Bitcoin is this buyer of last resort for energy, and that's a huge advantage. Like, we talk about companies start like, oh, who will be our customer? Like, if you figured out how to do, space electricity mining, well, it's like, okay, all right, great, we figured out ways to make tons of electricity up in space, but who's going to be your customer?
Yeah.
Well, a Bitcoin miner can be your customer. Like,
that's true.
So I really think that in the long run, the innovations that will happen in energy led by Bitcoin will be wonderful for the world.
Awesome. So now I want to know what people can do right now. You've got this pilot program that's happening right now, but like people can get started right away on on Bright ID. And are there other apps that are using Bright ID?
Yeah. So Bright ID, it's a public good. It's a protocol that's just like built to be used. And there's a number of applications that are integrated and using Bright ID today. And that continues to grow. So everyone that thinks this sounds cool should go to brightid.org and download the app. It's available on Android or Apple. And basically what you do is you get the simple app and you make connections to other people on the app. What Bright ID is actually doing is building a social graph. And if you have friends that are already on Bright ID, that's the ideal thing. You connect to them. You scan a QR code. It's a pretty simple process. If you don't know anyone on Bright ID, we have multiple connection parties over Zoom and on Discord every day. So again, on the website, you just go to the meet button and you get to be on a Zoom chat with random people from all over the world, and you'll make your first little connections, like as strangers. And you'll tell the system, hey, I just met these people. But there you go, because you need somebody. You can't, if you're just by yourself on Bright ID.
Yeah,
that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll throw it in a video. Get a little Zoom chat, Bright ID, and tell them about knee of the curve, and
yeah, it's fun.
That's my core audience, the people that are on Bright ID. I think I've found my niche there.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting. So there's a number of projects that are using it. I'll mention two specifically.
I've got them pulled up here. Bright ID applications. Yeah.
So the biggest one today is the One Hive honey faucet. So this is a crypto community that's doing some really cool things with governance and finance, and they have a community token called honey. Honey is money, right? So it's kind of like Bitcoin, but it's honey, and they wanted to get that into the hands of more people. So they set up, and it's still running, a faucet where anybody could come, and every 2 days, if you're Bright ID verified, you can claim your little drip of
and
honey.
Only if you're Bright ID verified.
Only if you're Bright ID verified.
Okay.
And again, like it's such a minimal thing. It's just saying it's because they want everyone to get their fair share. Right. You don't need to tell them anything. They don't care about your name or where you live. They just want everyone to get their fair share. And that was explosive to the growth of honey.
And what else? You've got a few other, I see Gitcoin and Rabbit Hole.
Git is awesome. So Gitcoin is sort of the center of public goods financing in Ethereum. So they every quarter they run this giant grants round where they get some well-funded people to put up grant funds, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, and then all the individual people come in and make small donations to projects working on public goods in the Ethereum space, and they get matching funds from the big donors. What's cool about this, though, is they use what's called quadratic funding. So this means that as more people giving an opinion has more weight than more dollars. So if 100 people each give $1, that grant is going to get a giant matching. They might get 100 times matching. So like for every person that donates $1, there's going to be $100 of matching. But another project gets one person to give $100, and that's going to get a tiny matching pool because it was just one person. So there's a bunch of math that goes on.
The more one person donates, the less it's worth.
It's about the masses more than the dollars. Anytime someone does an addition, more money, it does create more granting, but at a decreasing rate. So you'd always rather more. If you're going to get one more dollar, you'd like it to come from a new person rather than an existing person.
Quadratic voting, you've explained to me before. It sounds really amazing. I think I need to do like a whole knee of the curve just on like quadratic voting on the blockchain for like the next election. I think people would be really interested in how much more efficient and fair it is.
Yeah, quadratic voting, super cool. So in Gitcoin, because they do this quadratic system, it's super essential that each person can only participate once. Because if I can pretend to be 10 people, then I'll get way more grant funding than if all my donations were linked as one. So they integrated with Bright ID, so you can get bonus matching funds if you sort of verify with Bright ID.
Got it.
And the last one I want to mention right now is Rabbit Hole. So Rabbit Hole is a sort of crypto earn and learn platform where projects that want to get users to understand what they're doing offer quests, and it's like, hey, come on, use this platform, learn what it's about, actually do it. And then once you've done those steps, we'll pay you a reward for having gone through and used our platform, which is
it's kind of like Skillshare on the blockchain gamified.
Yeah. And for any of you listeners out there, if you've heard about this blockchain stuff but not actually like tried it out yet, or just you're like, I'm not sure, go to rabbithole.gg, like go through this process. They will pay you to learn these skills, which are super valuable to have.
Yeah, that's a lot better of a way than like previously, it was like, hey, buy some Bitcoin, because once you own it, you'll pay attention and you'll learn about it. But like, this is even better. Like, just get some crypto for free for learning about it. That's a better deal.
Let me tell you about one that's coming out really soon, like next week, that might be worth messing around with. So there's a project I'm involved in called Idea Market, and Idea Market is going to let people sort of it sort of creates a token market for anybody based on a Twitter handle. And the idea is anybody can go in and buy tokens for a Twitter handle. The tokens go up in price as you buy them like linearly. So like every additional one purchase is like more expensive than the one before it. And so you buy them with DAI. The DAI goes in and gets locked up in compound, so it earns interest. And then the owner of the Twitter account can claim the interest. So if you find someone early and you start investing in them, and then a whole bunch of other people come after you and do it too, you could sell your tokens for more than you bought them for. I can speculate on the popularity of any account on Twitter, and all I need is for more people to come in after me and want to do the same.
Oh, so that's the game. It's like but the people that are popular on Twitter kind of have to be the ones promoting it in order to make it popular.
Well,
first they have to know about it. Then they have to promote it.
First they don't need to know about it.
What?
Someone just needs to believe that more people are going to hear and want to get involved. So here's what happens. Somebody goes in and opens the market and they invest some money. And then it gets to be that, oh, well, you suddenly like hear through the grapevine that people have put some money on knee of the curve token, and now you're earning some interest.
I can call it knee of the curve token?
I mean, effectively it is. It's a token generated per Twitter account. So like it's literally called like if your Twitter handle is like at me of the curve, that's the name of the token.
It's a new token for every Twitter account.
For every Twitter account. And let's say I never told you about this, right? So just 2 weeks later, turns out that I went in because I thought you were cool. I bought knee of the curve token, and I told a few friends to buy knee of the curve token. And then suddenly somebody sends you a message, there's some little tweet about it, like, oh, hey, there's $10,000 locked in knee of the curve tokens, and this is now earning $100 a month in interest.
Sick.
So now you're like, oh, hey, I never heard of this, but dude, I just collected my first interest check. I like this. Hey, knee of the curve nation, y'all should get in on this.
Right.
This is a good deal. Come invest in me.
Wow. Okay.
So
I'm going to do this already, and I'm going to put it as a link on all my cryptocurrency videos and tweet about it. Sorry to interrupt your conversation. I know that's annoying, but I just want to let you know that bringing you conversations like this is one of the new goals of the channel in 2021. If you're interested in supporting, there's a bunch of ways you can do that. There's merch on Teespring. I have a Patreon. I made a coffee that actually 100% of those proceeds go to help kids get cool cyborg limbs. Not just for any kids. We are not trading out healthy limbs yet. Also, if you're interested in free Netflix and Spotify and Amazon Prime and a $25 bonus, and you want a crypto credit card, all the links are down in the show notes. Back to the combo. Ethereum just seems so much more versatile and valuable. And I just keep waiting for it to pop and like pass Bitcoin.
Well, so there's a term for that. It's called the flippening.
Really?
People that are Bitcoin maximalists say it'll absolutely never happen. If you're like an Ethereum maximalist, you're like, it'll definitely happen. Frankly, I mean, I don't really care. I believe in hold both assets. Bitcoin certainly moves slower, and there's pros and cons to that. Right now, Bitcoin's had a number of narratives throughout the years. Right now, it's pretty focused on one, and that's to be sort of gold 2.0, just a better reserve asset like gold. And not investment advice, but there's a rational argument that Bitcoin can be better gold than gold ever was, and therefore be worth more in total than gold. So could Bitcoin be worth $10 trillion? Sure. No reason not to. I mean,
right.
More and bigger entities keep entering the market. It used to be, just gamblers, and it's not. It's not anymore.
Yeah, it's financial institutions. It's Elon Musk, man.
Right. There's a great guy that talks about Bitcoin called Plan B, and he's put out some amazing charts about how he thinks the progression of Bitcoin price will work, and he's done all this quantitative analysis. And one of the ideas that he explains is that as Bitcoin goes through different types of assets, and therefore different entities that will buy it. So with MicroStrategies and Square and now Tesla buying in, like that's companies, and we could see that continue to accelerate. There's all these rumors now, like, oh, Apple's going to be the next to buy. We are going to see the next to buys. I don't know that it's going to be Apple next, but like by the end of the year, by the end of next year, there will be a bunch of corporations that hold this on their balance sheet,
right?
Because it's worked out for the ones that did it first. They got cash. Cash is a lousy thing to have on your balance sheet. Like we like to denominate in dollars and like talk about, but when you say, oh, they have $1 billion, like you don't actually want to have $1 billion in cash. Like,
yeah. If you have too much, you're like, well, what are you doing with it? Why is it not making the company better? Like where are you allocating it to? Yeah.
Most of the world at this point for cash has negative interest rates, which it's hard to wrap your brain around that. Like you will put the money in the bank and they're going to give you less of it back in the future. Like that's not what we were taught as children how it works.
And they're paying you to borrow, I guess. Is that how that works too?
There was briefly over in Europe some negative interest rate mortgages.
Like we're going to give you money to buy a house.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So crazy things happening. Corporations are going to look for, all right, we made all this money. Okay, great. with COVID, we've got this K-shaped recovery where small businesses got trounced and like aren't coming back, and big businesses are like, okay, no, we can adapt to this, and they're doing great. So as they kill off the little guys, they're going to have even more money than they already had. They got to do something with it. And now there's this new playbook that's been shown to them. Oh, one of the things you can do is buy Bitcoin, and
Right. Michael Saylor
Bitcoin,
with MicroStrategy Now, World Now. Yeah, giving his. I do wonder if anyone from Tesla or Elon used that. It looks like they kind of had the playbook earlier because they made this decision apparently in January.
maybe even earlier than that. So
Yeah.
I don't think that they didn't pick this up from the conference that Michael Saylor just held. That
Okay.
they clearly knew before that.
Okay.
Could they have gotten information from Michael Saylor and MicroStrategies 2 months ago? Absolutely. There was this kind of famous Twitter exchange where
Right.
Elon tweeted something and Michael Saylor was like, you can buy Bitcoin. I'll show you how to do it. And he's like, could you really buy like that much
Right.
Bitcoin? He's like, yeah, I bought $1 billion worth. I'm happy to tell you.
Yeah.
Rocket scientist to rocket scientist.
Man, I should have bought MicroStrategy when it was at 300 back in December. Now it's like 1100 today. And it probably a lot has to do with people seeing their moves into Bitcoin.
At this point, I think it would be silly to hold MicroStrategy if you don't fundamentally believe in Bitcoin.
Sure. I think, yeah.
Because whatever the company was before it did this, like, that's a side note now, even though that's like what the majority of the employees may do. So yeah, MicroStrategy is a proxy for Bitcoin at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty genius because their whole business is about strategy for businesses. So, and this is one of their business strategies they're going all in on. So they're kind of walking the walk there.
I remember
their core business.
The first day that their purchase was announced, there were all these memes on Twitter be like, "Oh, they need to change the name to Macro Strategies."
Ooh, nice.
Because they're sort of making this bet, and I think it's worked out better and faster than they ever could have hoped.
Yeah. Well, when do you think some big company will do something similar to putting their cash reserves into Bitcoin, but with Ethereum? So what about a company saying, okay, we're going to use a DAO? What if MicroStrategy says we're now using the Ethereum network to do all our corporate governance? Is that a next big move that someone could do?
So using it would not be that essential. And it's funny. So right now, DAO, a few months ago, running DAOs on Ethereum mainnet was great. Running DAOs on Ethereum mainnet right now is rough because there's so much usage. All the Ethereum blocks are full. So there's a new Ethereum block approximately every 15 seconds. In Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes. And it's only 1 megabyte a day. Ethereum, it's every 15 seconds. And they're all still full. And because you've now got this scarce asset, the prices go up. It's like if you want to go to a baseball game at a team that doesn't sell out their stadium, tickets aren't too bad. You want to go to the Red Sox that always sells out every single game, the tickets are crazy. And that's what's happening in Ethereum. Every block is full. So there's competition for every slot of information that you could put in there, and the prices run up. And it used to be, in Ethereum, we price things in Gwei. It's kind of like it's sort of like a Satoshi in Bitcoin, a SAT. We price things in Gwei, and you used to use a price of 1 Gwei. Right now, as of recording this, it bops around. But let's see, right now it is 194 Gwei. So a couple months ago that was 1, and now it's 194. And there are times that it gets really congested, and that goes to 400, 500. So we're talking it's 400 or 500 times more expensive to use Ethereum than it was a few months ago.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. The fees are going up on Bitcoin too. That's the only one I've noticed. But yeah, that's an issue as these things get more popular. The fees get crazy.
Now, luckily, the solution is there's a bunch of unbelievably smart people working on layer twos for Ethereum, and they really are gaining traction. People have talked a long time about layer twos for Bitcoin, specifically the Lightning Network. And the Lightning Network,
what's a layer two?
Layer two is where you can basically take some of the stuff that would have happened on the main chain, move it to a different place that's cheaper, do a bunch of stuff all at once, roll it together, and then only put a little bit of the data on the main chain. But that was enough to like make it all come true.
Do you have to trust that other place just as much as this other blockchain?
So if the really smart people do it right, then like the security guarantees can be almost as good as the main chain. Okay. And like other blockchain things, once you add time onto it, then it's rock solid.
Okay. But right now you're saying it just doesn't make sense it's just not ready for prime time. Once the layer two stuff happens, then maybe corporations would be like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, and like we're getting close. So there's a number of different layer twos. People are trying to. It's a funny thing, right? So there's basically all these suburbs being built off of the main chain, and we got to see where people settle. And some of them are going to be popular and some of them aren't. And the ones that are popular, then there's all sorts of network effects, because like if you're doing cool things on a side chain, ideally you're doing your cool things in the same place that a bunch of other cool things are happening, so that they can all like talk to each other and not have to go back to the main chain for everything.
So speaking of that network effect on Ethereum, with Bitcoin, everybody, Michael Saylor's all over the place talking. It's the Facebook of cryptocurrency, the network effect, and that obviously seems to be the case with Bitcoin. So as far as creating DAOs, is Ethereum the Facebook of that? Is anything in danger of taking the top spot?
No, there's a number of other what we call L1 layer one chains out there that they sometimes get called Ethereum killers. Nothing else is even close. So there's Polkadot, and there's Cardano, and there's Tezos, and there's all these different things. If you look at what is actually getting used, there's Ethereum, there's Bitcoin, and there's everything else. And you can measure this in the transaction, the dollars that people are paying to use these networks. And at this point, it is many millions of dollars per day in transaction fees paid to the Ethereum network. It is also multiple millions of dollars for Bitcoin, but materially less. And after that, then it goes down to protocols that are built on Ethereum that are like in positions 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then eventually you'll get down to one of these other layer one chains that's supposed to be an Ethereum killer. And Ethereum's at, $8 million in fees, and that one's at $1,200 in fees.
Yeah, okay.
So if you want to call that competition, fine, but it's Ethereum, Bitcoin, and everything else in terms of value of the block space.
Philip, man, I'm so glad that we did this again. I'm really sure that it recorded everything this time. We triple checked.
On Twitter, I'm UBI promoter.
That's
UBI
right.
promoter most places.
Okay,
so
good.
I'm also on Discord and Telegram and other places.
Oh, right. There's a Discord for Bright ID and.
There's a Discord for Bright ID, yeah. And we didn't even talk about all of the many DAOs that I'm part of, but I was a founding member of the LAO, which is a venture DAO structured as a legal U.S. corporation. Done super cool things. Flamingo DAO, which is focused on NFTs, non-fungible tokens, like art and digital assets. Part of Whaler DAO, which is trying to bring sort of charity to decentralized finance, because right now sort of it's degenerate finance and we want it to be regenerative finance. Yeah, so much cool stuff out there.
Oh man, that's enough for a few more podcasts. I'll have to have you back on.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks again for doing this, Philip. Go check out Bright ID and all those other things, and UBI promoter on Twitter. All right.
Thanks, Emmett.
Thank you.